In just one generation, Japan pulled off a stunning transformation, going from an isolated, feudal society to a global superpower that could stand against the entire Western world. By the late 1930s, the Imperial Japanese Navy was a titan, its aircraft carriers ruling the Pacific. On the mainland, the hardened Imperial Army was carving out a huge empire across Asia. The world could only watch with a mix of fear and sheer awe. How on earth did they do it? How did a country that had sealed itself off for 2 centuries suddenly achieve such a terrifyingly rapid rise? The secret wasn't just in its soldiers or its weapons. The leap from samurai swords to aircraft carriers wasn't simply the work of generals and politicians. It was cranked into motion by a hidden engine, a powerful, deeply woven alliance between the military and a handful of colossal, family-run corporations. This is the story of the Zaibatsu, the giant industrial groups that became the beating heart of Japan's war machine. It's the story of how their boundless ambition and the military's fanatical vision merged to build an empire, setting Japan on a course that would eventually set the entire Pacific ablaze. To get how this engine was built, we have to rewind to the mid-19th century. For over 250 years, under the Tokugawa shogunate, Japan had been in a state of deliberate, self-imposed isolation, a world of samurai, farmers, and artisans frozen in time. The real power wasn't with the divine emperor in Kyoto, but with the shogun in Edo. That quiet world was shattered in 1853, when American Commodore Matthew Perry steamed his black ships into Tokyo Bay with cannons out. It was a national trauma. His message was simple and brutal: open up for trade, or else. For Japan's leaders, seeing the superior American warships was a terrifying wake-up call. They'd seen what happened to their massive neighbor China, which had been humiliated and carved up by European powers during the Opium Wars. They knew Japan had a stark choice: modernize or be colonized. This threat lit the fuse on a revolution. In 1868, ambitious reformers overthrew the shogun and restored political power to the Emperor Meiji. The Meiji Restoration wasn't just a change of government. It was the start of a frantic, nationwide race to catch up with the West. The new leadership adopted a powerful slogan that would define the next 80 years: Fukoku Kyohei, enrich the country, strengthen the armed forces. The two goals were welded together. A strong military needed a modern industrial economy, and a strong economy needed the military to secure resources and project power. But the government couldn't build this new Japan by itself. It needed partners, and it found them in a select group of merchant families who would soon become the most powerful men in the nation. The era of the Zaibatsu was about to begin. The term Zaibatsu, which literally means wealth clique, refers to the massive family-controlled conglomerates that quickly came to dominate Japan's economy. Names we still know today: Mitsubishi, Mitsui, Sumitomo, and Yasuda, were the big four at the top of this new corporate food chain. The Meiji government kick-started industrialization by building model factories and shipyards, but it never intended to run them. Once these businesses were up and running, they were sold off, often for pennies on the dollar, to well-connected entrepreneurs. This state-guided capitalism created the Zaibatsu almost overnight. The Iwasaki family, founders of Mitsubishi, started with shipping and rapidly expanded. The Mitsui family, with older roots, branched out from finance into almost every industry imaginable. These weren't just companies, they were empires. A single Zaibatsu was a vertically integrated fortress. At the top sat a family-owned holding company. Below it, a powerful bank financed the whole operation. And under that, a sprawling web of subsidiaries in mining, manufacturing, shipbuilding, and trade. They were a closed loop, built for ruthless growth. At the same time, the other half of the Fukoku Kyohei plan was taking shape. Japan created a modern, professional military, heavily influenced by the Prussian model. In 1873, universal conscription created a huge pool of manpower, all taught to have absolute loyalty to an emperor who was now elevated to the status of a living god. But the new military structure had a critical, and perhaps deliberate, flaw. The Army and Navy command answered, on paper, only to the emperor, not the prime minister or the civilian government. This gave the military a political blank check, allowing it to dictate policy and even topple governments that got in its way. It was a state within a state. The first real tests of this new system were the wars against China in 1894 and Russia in 1904. Both were stunning victories that announced Japan's arrival as a major power, and they were incredibly profitable for the military-industrial partnership. The Zaibatsu built the ships, supplied the weapons, and moved the troops. In return, they got huge government contracts and access to the resources of new colonies like Taiwan and Korea. War was great for business. Each victory tightened the alliance, with the Mitsui group growing close to the army, and Mitsubishi developing strong ties with the navy. The engine of Japanese power was assembled and humming with terrifying potential. The 1920s brought a brief glimmer of hope for peace. A fragile democracy seemed to be taking root, and international naval treaties suggested the military might be reined in. But beneath the surface, tensions were simmering. The Zaibatsu were viewed with suspicion by both the political right and left, seen as a corrupting influence. The military, meanwhile, hated any civilian restraint, viewing politicians as weak and self-serving. Then the world economy fell apart. The Great Depression of 1929 hit Japan like a sledgehammer. Exports dried up, unemployment skyrocketed, and rural communities, where most of the army's soldiers came from, were devastated. The crisis destroyed public faith in the civilian government and played right into the hands of military extremists. They had a simple argument: greedy politicians and selfish Zaibatsu had failed Japan. The only salvation was to break free from the Western-led global order and carve out a self-sufficient empire in Asia. An empire with all the oil, rubber, and iron that Japan desperately needed. This idea found its most zealous followers in the Guangdong Army, Japan's elite force stationed in the resource-rich Chinese province of Manchuria. In 1931, acting completely without orders from Tokyo, Guangdong Army officers faked a small explosion on a Japanese-owned railway and used it as a pretext to launch a full-scale invasion. The civilian government was helpless to stop them. The conquest of Manchuria was the point of no return. A rogue army had acted, and the government had to fall in line, proving once and for all who held the real power. For the military-industrial complex, Manchuria was a gold rush. The Zaibatsu poured in, building mines, steel mills, and chemical plants to exploit the region's resources. This colonial expansion helped Japan pull out of the Depression faster than nearly any other country, which only seemed to justify the military's aggression. The engine was now roaring. Throughout the 1930s, the military completed its hostile takeover of the state. A wave of assassinations targeting moderate politicians created a climate of pure terror. By the middle of the decade, the government was dominated by military men and their allies, no longer a check on their ambition but its instrument. In 1937, a clash near Beijing spiraled into a full-blown invasion of China, starting the Second Sino-Japanese War. This was war on a scale Japan had never imagined, and it demanded total mobilization. The Zaibatsu became the quartermasters of this massive conflict. Mitsubishi became Japan's biggest producer of warships and planes, including the legendary Zero fighter. Mitsui ran munitions factories, and Sumitomo supplied essential metals. They were now completely fused with the military. Their profits soared, but the human cost was staggering. With millions of Japanese men conscripted, the Zaibatsu faced a huge labor shortage. Their solution was as brutal as it was simple: forced labor. Millions of Chinese and Korean civilians, along with Allied prisoners of war, were worked to death in their mines and factories to feed the war machine. The endless war in China consumed a shocking amount of resources, especially oil. Japan was importing over 80% of its oil from the United States, a nation that was becoming increasingly hostile to its aggression. When Japan moved into French Indochina in 1941 to secure more resources, Washington hit back with a crippling oil embargo. The engine was about to seize. For Japan's leaders, the choice was stark: abandon their empire in humiliation, or seize the oil-rich Dutch East Indies by force. That, however, meant war with the United States. The decision was made. The Zaibatsu-built carriers set sail for Pearl Harbor. The engine had driven Japan straight into the Pacific War. During World War II, the Zaibatsu were the absolute bedrock of Japan's war effort. They didn't just help, they practically managed the war economy. Between 1941 and 1945, their total assets more than doubled as they absorbed smaller companies and directed almost all industrial production to military needs. The line between corporation and state simply vanished. The military set the quotas, and the Zaibatsu met them, churning out every bullet, ship, and plane the empire needed. But the engine that powered Japan's rise was no match for the colossal industrial power of the United States. As impressive as Japan's production was, it couldn't keep up. The American industrial machine, once it was fully mobilized, began to outproduce Japan on an unimaginable scale. For every Zero fighter Mitsubishi built, America built waves of more advanced Hellcats and Corsairs. For every aircraft carrier Japan lost, the US launched several more. The material difference was simply overwhelming. By 1944, American bombers were systematically leveling Japan's industrial centers, crippling the Zaibatsu's ability to produce anything. The engine sputtered, faltered, and finally, after 2 atomic bombs, it ground to a halt. After Japan's surrender in 1945, the American occupation authorities pointed directly at the Zaibatsu as a key pillar of Japanese militarism. They were seen as willing partners who had profited immensely from conquest. The order was given to dismantle them. Under General Douglas MacArthur, the family-owned holding companies were dissolved, their shares sold to the public, and the interlocking ownership that gave them their power was broken. The age of the family-controlled industrial empires was officially over. But you can't erase connections that deep overnight. While the family control was gone, the companies themselves, the banks, the trading houses, the manufacturers, all remained. The managers and engineers who ran them were still there. As Japan began its post-war economic miracle, these former Zaibatsu companies naturally drifted back together. They formed new, looser corporate groups called keiretsu. Unlike the old Zaibatsu, keiretsu weren't run by a single family. They were organized around a powerful bank and a major trading company, with companies holding small amounts of each other's stock to promote stability. And the names stayed the same: Mitsubishi, Mitsui, Sumitomo. The engine wasn't scrapped, it was rebuilt in a new form. This new model, born from the ashes of the old, would power Japan's second rise as a global economic superpower, proving the legacy of that powerful and ultimately destructive alliance was far more resilient than anyone imagined. The story of Imperial Japan's rise and fall is a tangled web of culture, politics, and ideology. But running through it all is the powerful, symbiotic bond between the military and the Zaibatsu. This was an engine born from the national crisis of the Black Ships, an engine that transformed a country, built an empire, and in the end, drove it to complete ruin. The quest for security through Fukoku Kyohei created a feedback loop where industrial might and military ambition fueled each other, spiraling out of control into a disaster. The secret engine of Imperial Japan's power wasn't so secret after all. It was a military-industrial complex whose ambition knew no limits, and whose rebuilt legacy continues to shape the global economy today. If you found this exploration of history compelling, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. Let us know in the comments what other hidden histories you'd like to see us uncover next. Thank you for watching.